Now, stir fry is usually associated with the Chinese, and the thing that separates Indian stir fry, in my book, is the use of spices. Sometimes excessively, as I'm often accused of. But I like my food to taste good. Not just be really healthy, but to taste really good. We're gonna want some frozen shrimp. I bought a 2-pound bag and separated it in half. This is about a pound. You want the shrimp to be as big as possible. Just place them in a colander because we're gonna thaw them out under hot water so we don't have to wait overnight to use them. Daikon radish, or mooli if you're buying it from the Indian store. It's daikon if you're gonna get it from a general Asian store. And a whole lot of broccoli. You're gonna wanna wok. In terms of spices, we just need some ground ginger, some cumin, and some curry powder. Now in terms of follow-up cooking material, you're gonna want some red palm oil. That's what we're gonna cook with. Red palm oil, it's really good for you. Some ginger paste, just a little bit of black bean sauce. It's salty, so we don't want to use too much. And we're also gonna get some salt from the squid sauce. Now what's really interesting is you'll hear a lot of rumors on how squid sauce is not good for you. Just not true. Check the ingredients. If it has high fructose corn syrup, well then it's pretty bad for you. But you know, any good fish sauce, you'll only see 3 ingredients. And that'll be anchovy extract, salt, and sugar. And it's got such a minimal amount of sugar that you don't have to worry about it. Now the sodium content is gonna be high, no matter what we're cooking Asian-wise. Even if we did not use sauces or anything, fish alone has a high sodium content. What I usually do is pop a potassium glutamate pill after every Asian meal, and that will take care of that. Now, I want to cut the daikon radish rather thin. You know, most of the time we've only seen it shredded at various Japanese restaurants, but you know, it just looks like any radish crossed with a, I don't know, zucchini of some sort. But we're slicing them thin. We're not chopping them. Just nice, thin slices. They don't have to be round. We're really looking for shavings. See that? That's pretty nice. You don't need to use a big knife for this at all. Just a simple slicing knife will do. And that's good for now. You don't need a lot of daikon. It's a pretty strong flavor. What we get in the Japanese restaurants, I believe, are usually pretty, you know, washed down. This is a strong radish flavor to it. Okay, now we've got our thin slices, kind of pile them up, and now we can do just a small chopping motion. They don't have to be separated, just kind of break it up a little bit, just so the surface oxidizes a bit. We want to increase the surface area. We don't really need to cut them into chops. All we're doing is increasing surface area so more of the air can react with the daikon itself. Sweep away some of this daikon residue. Okay, now let's set that aside. Just put that away for the moment, because now we're going to move on to our broccoli. Now, freshly harvested broccoli is a bit of a monstrosity. Just look at the size of this thing. It's a tree. Now, I love leaves and stems, but as you get closer to the root of the plant, the stem becomes inedible. It's more of a bark trunk-like substance. So we want to, again, not with a sharp knife, because we're trying to figure something out here. We want to find the spot where it goes from tough to nice, much like you would asparagus. If you cannot cut through it with a simple knife, it's going to be too tough to eat. I think I found it. Give it a little force, and you can even verify that it's edible by making sure it's nice and tender on the inside versus a firm, nasty wood. And this piece you can throw out, you can whittle it, you can toss it in your garden for compost, anything goes. All right, now let's take care of the crowns. First we'll want to shave off the leaves. And just set them aside, we will use them later. All right, nice clean stalk. Now, if you bought your broccoli from the store and it looks like this, probably only goes this high, that's fine. You do not need the leaves. You'll still have plenty of stem to work with. The leaves are just a nice added extra. It's good stuff. And obviously, store-bought broccoli is more dense. When you grow it yourself, it has a tendency to grow taller. Start carving up some crowns. Now, broccoli is an essential stir-fry component, mainly because the tops here, the crowns here, work as little brooms that hold on to sauce. It's really fantastic. And I like mine kind of big. You can cut them to the size that you like. And we'll just arrange them on our plate here for further adding into our wok. Now you may want to keep in mind on cutting size. I use chopsticks, so size is not a problem. If you're going to use a fork, you're going to keep things a little bigger. Forks can't stab through real little thin pieces of broccoli. And yes, we want to use the whole thing. Broccoli is where most of our nutrients will come from. It'll fill us up. High in vitamin B. The more bluish purple your crowns are, the more vitamin B there is in there. If you're a guy, broccoli is the perfect, really efficient fat loss muscle building tool. High in phosphates, really healthy, good fiber content, good healthy carb content. Some broccoli coupled with a protein shake after a workout really does wonders. Now let's attack the stem. We want thin slices, not too thin, but not too thick either where they're difficult to chew. Remember, some of these, as we get closer to the root, even though we chopped off the tree trunk part, gonna get a little tough. If you're squeamish about stem and don't trust the strength of your teeth, then go ahead and toss the rest. Get as much stem as you can. That's easy to cut. You can toss the tough parts. I've seen my mother do this, even shave off, like that, the sides, and at least you get some meat and toss away the bark. this is plenty. The leaves are an interesting thing when you grow them yourself. Critters will often get to them. Now, I know we wash the thing and it's safe to eat and we can cut around the critter holes. I personally only pick out the leaves that have no bites in them whatsoever. It's a little anal. You can actually use the leaves that have been bitten into, but I just toss them. See, this one's all nice. And we just cut them as so. You're gonna get a little broccoli color on your cutting board. Broccoli leaves leave a nice stain of green, but it should wash out in the dishwasher. And leaf stems are fantastic, kind of an asparagus taste to them. Holes, no good. Holes, no good. No good. Again, you can eat these. I'm probably being a bit wasteful. But here's a nice big one. Actually sufficient for the rest of our meal here that has no bites in it whatsoever. See, I'm scrunching it up. I can actually get more surface area this way. You do not need to be consistent with size because as we cook these, they're going to compact down. But they're also going to hold a lot of flavor from the sauces and the spices. Excellent. Look at all that good leaf we have. Good leaf and stem. Look at the size of this one. I may not actually use the whole thing because we got plenty good leaf from this crop. I will help myself to some of this stem. Okay, add it to our ingredients plate. We can put this right on top of the stems and then the broccoli. All the broccoli is going to go in at the same time anyway. Look at all that green. All right, now add our wok. Now this is where the action begins. Now, I am actually not using a spatula. I'm using this kind of batter stirring spoon. It works best. As you can see, it gets kind of burned a little bit when you leave it in after you're done cooking, but it works the best for stir frying. You really don't need a spatula. You're not flipping anything. Now, palm oil stays solid like coconut oil at room temperature. I'm gonna toss about that much in. A little goes a long way. It's got a nice gamey taste to it and will absorb spice really well. It'll add to that Indian flavor and give everything a nice bright red coating. So I'm tossing just a little palm oil there, setting the bottle aside because we may need more later depending on how things are working. I'm also going to preemptively set just a little of the ginger paste on there. Ginger paste is a strong smell and a strong flavor. And it's not salted or anything, it's just got a strong flavor. It a little goes a long way here as well. But broccoli holds onto it really nicely, so we will throw some on there as things start cooking. So that's all we're going to start with for now. I turn things to high heat. and I leave it on high. So this is where the action begins, because stir frying is done on really, really high heat. And things have to be done quickly. That's why we get organized and get our vegetables ready first. Okay, as our palm oil and ginger melt, we're going to use it to coat. Just kind of take the spoon and move it around so we get a nice orange coating. And we're going to start with tossing in our broccoli. Listen to that sizzle. Stems, leaves, and everything. And like I said, we got to do things quickly. These things will burn fast in a wok. Keep things moving. You don't need to stir, just kind of flip things around so nothing sticks to the surface for longer than a few seconds. Otherwise it'll stick there permanently and you'll have a hell of a time cleaning it off. And as you'll notice, the broccoli and its leaves are now getting shiny. It's absorbed a great deal of our oil and our ginger paste. I'm going to throw a little bit more palm oil on top. It's actually quite a bit more. It's good for you. Maybe high in saturated fat, but like coconut oil, it's good stuff. All right, a little black bean paste and a little more of this ginger paste, just a little bit. Start turning once again. Now, I like my meals to be very green. We can also throw on top of these water chestnuts, add a little white, some carrots, some celery, even though it's green, gives it a nice crunch. But as you can see, I keep it kind of simple. It's broccoli in 3 different forms: leaves, stems, crowns, and the shrimp, pretty much. Now, one thing I also like to do is, and you can try this, I don't eat a lot of rice unless I'm actually in a sushi restaurant. It's a lot of empty calories. So I get a bag of shirataki noodles from the Asian store, and you can always stir fry the noodles and serve this on a bed of shirataki noodles. Shirataki noodles are made of yams, yam flour actually. And they really have no carbohydrates. Probably just some potassium, and that's about it. Alright, time to add the daikon, or mooli. Keep things moving. And here is where the fun begins. Open the bottle of squid sauce and just a little bit, otherwise things get too salty. Give it a shake. You can smell the anchovy in the air. You know, all kind of fishy. Now what that does is that helps free up some of your spice that have probably stuck to the sides here, because there is water content, but at least things aren't soupy. Things are gonna be salty, but they're not soupy. And now we add our shrimp. Look at that pretty pink color. And keep things moving. Now, frozen shrimp is already cooked. And make sure you get the cooked kind. So that's why we did not stir fry it first. Shrimp cooks very fast and gets tough pretty easily. I know you're saying, this isn't quite Indian yet. That is what the curry powder and spices are for. Now you could add some turmeric in here. Turmeric adds a really mild flavor, but mainly gives it that really rich yellow color that a lot of Indian food has. And it's really good for you. But it also makes quite a bit of a mess and stains everything around you yellow, so I'm going to refrain from using it. Keep things moving. All right. We'll start with the ginger powder. Use liberally. We'll toss in a couple pinches of cumin seed, like so. Just a couple. Cumin adds to that Indian flavor as well. You can also get pre-made packages of tandoori spice, Tandoori. Little Rogan Josh spice is actually not bad. It's kind of tomatoey, and it doesn't belong in a stir fry, but it works. A bit of a sweet taste also. Now I'm adding this curry powder. And I know curry powder comes in different shapes and forms, but you'll have to experiment. Now, I got this from an Indian store, so it doesn't actually have a breakdown of what has been put in this curry powder. And again, use liberally. You want spices to stick and crust onto the shrimp. Otherwise, shrimp just has some salty, seafoody flavor about it. And keep things moving. Now you know, even though we thawed out the shrimp, you'll see that a pool of water is starting to form here. That's not, some of it's unavoidable. We can always drain that off. Oh, if you could only smell this through your TV. Curry powder has an amazing smell. Now another thing you can also add is whole garlic. I love garlic. Whole cloves of garlic stir fried or even half cloves are really, really tasty. Alright, once you think the shrimp is good, you can tell you want to get it before it starts. Once it just starts to shrink in size, we're starting to go a little too far, so we can cut the heat. It'll still continue to cook. See how all that broccoli cooked down? Now, one thing I also suggest is you may want to get a splatter garlic. Because little bits of curry juice are going to be shooting all over the place. Now see the splatter that ensues on your stove? You want to clean that off immediately. There is nothing more difficult to clean than dried Indian spices. Just superficially now, you can always hit it with a little 409 once we're done. And now notice we have some nice spice crust on the side of our wok. This is good. A dirty wok is a good wok for this next step. But first, let's get back to our daikon radish. Take out a small hand grater, or a large one, doesn't matter, and our beautiful daikon radish, and start grating directly into the wok. You don't need a lot of it, but we want enough to give us a nice, juicy daikon pulp. Now, daikon leaves a very pulpy mess, you see on the inside of the grater, that will have to be scooped out. And sometimes it's easier to start grating on an angle versus flat on. Depends on how sharp your grater is and how big your grater is. And feel free to use either the big grating sizes or the small grating sizes. It doesn't matter. It's a matter of preference. I'm using the small just because it's kind of easier to do. Daikon leaves a lot of juice. Now make sure you keep the heat off. We don't want to cook what we're about to do here. Now take a little fat-free yogurt. I would say 3, see these are heaping tablespoons, 4, 5, and 6 really good tablespoons of yogurt. You're gonna love what's gonna happen next. All right, now taking our curry powder, we're gonna dump some onto the yogurt. Like so. And mix it up. We're gonna mix the daikon slaw well into the curried up yogurt. You can also add a little black pepper to taste. Some salt, perhaps. I don't like it too salty, being that our stir fry is going to have some salty taste to it. And just kind of mix it and whip it till it's back to a yogurt consistency. The daikon's going to add some juice and water to it, so you don't want the water and yogurt to be separate. And the reason we're doing this in the wok is there's some leftover spices in the wok and some juices in the wok that'll absorb into this. Plus, why waste another dish? We're using the same spices. There you go. That is perfect. And this, my friends, is the finished product. Alright, I know on most cooking programs you're going to see smaller portions and with a bit of garnish. And this meal would serve 3 people, but let's face it, I'm a guy, I'm going to eat this whole thing in one sitting.